the Fed's saying, hey, we're going to kind of wait and see how this turns out. But the market's already kind of pricing in the fact and saying, hey, look, you're going to have to cut rates because the economy is going to slow down. The reason that the Fed cut rates is try to spur economic activity and try to stave off an economic slowdown / recession. What the market's saying is that there's a potentially much more of an impact that they're seeing coming out of what's happening with the virus and what's happening with the economy right now than what the Fed is saying. So the Fed may be sitting there saying is like, hey, we're going to wait and see. But the market's saying, hey, look, the impact's coming and you're going to cut rates and this is how much we think you're going to cut.
And we debate this a lot, Lance. Is this virus, especially if it spreads and keeps going the way it is it inflationary or deflationary? Because it's affecting supply lines, which is very inflationary, but it's also affecting demand. People can't go out, they can't consume. It's this tug of war between inflation and deflation, and maybe one reason that the Fed is taking this wait and see approach is that they're concerned that the hit to the supply lines, the global trade lines, is going to be more than the hit to consumption. Therefore, it could be inflationary.
Warren Buffett says that you should always bet on the U.S. economy. Stocks will outperform bonds. Okay. Then why do you have $130 billion worth of cash in U.S. treasuries instead of invested in the markets? If you believe what you're selling, right? Now, remember, Warren Buffett is a huge Democrat, right? So big supporter of Mike Bloomberg for president. But if you believe what you're selling, then why do you have $130 billion worth of cash? Why didn't you invest that money into an S&P index fund? If you believe what you're selling and you believe what you're telling people, then why didn't you invest all that cash you had sitting around while you were waiting to find an investment to put it into, right? To buy a new company, whatever it was. Why didn't you put that into an S&P index fund and follow your own recipe? Because if you had, and this is the point of my article, your investors in Berkshire Hathaway would have made $90 billion more over the course of the last decade than they made in the stock currently. By not even following your own advice and investing $130 billion in treasuries, you cost your shareholders $90 billion. That's with a B, a buh. B, billion dollars. It's a lot of money. It's about a 4% annualized return gap over what investors got versus what they should have gotten or could have gotten if you had followed your own advice. And regardless of what politicians tell you, it's like, oh, elect me as president and I'm going to pay for everything and we're going to have free college and free healthcare and we're going to create 12% economic growth. Ain't going to happen. You're going to be lucky to be growing at 1 or 2. And if you want a quick example of a country that has done exactly what Bernie Sanders and the others are proposing, go look at Japan. 1% economic growth, actually in a recession now, 1% economic growth, 0 negative interest rates, and basically an entire population that's struggling to make ends meet. Not the way you want to be in the U.S. You know that it's getting serious about the coronavirus when the CDC puts out a report of what type of beard you can have with a mask, right? So if you're clean shaven, right, and you put on a mask to protect yourself from the virus, you're in good shape. If you have stubble, if you're one of these guys that wear the 5 o'clock shadow all day, have the stubble.
And when did that become an acceptable fashion statement?
With the millennials who are too tired to shave.
Walking around looking like they crawled out from under a bridge?
They're too tired to shave. Too much work to shave. But if you've got 5 o'clock stubble, that negates the effectiveness of the mask. If you have a Fu Manchu, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? But, not if you have the English style handlebars. Right. So basically, if your whiskers are sticking out the side of the mask, I guess this goes for males or females. But if your whiskers are sticking outside the mask, negates the effectiveness of the mask. So might want to shave.
So Lance,
yes, sir.
So Lance, we need to be looking into Gillette then, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
That's
there
actually,
we go.
There we go.
This is how we come up with investment ideas.
Exactly. Everybody's got to shave.
You could win by a whisker.
Exactly. A new poll out this morning asked the question that how do most Americans end their workday? When do you go home? 30% of workers say that they go home when their allocated number of work hours are done. 13% say they go home when they finish their daily to-do list. 9% say that they go home when they feel good about what they've accomplished. 5% say they go home when their manager supervisors say they can leave. 5% other reasons, and 4% go home when they're tired. We've talked about before on the show that your wage is what you bring to the table, right? We talk about a minimum wage, right? Your minimum wage is $0. And this is where people are going to find this out ultimately. Minimum wage is $0. You earn a wage because you bring some value to your job. In other words, you do something that nobody else can do, or you do it so well that people don't want to replace you with something else. 3 in 10 workers typically leave work when they've completed their allocated work hours. New poll out next week will say 3 out of 10 Americans upset they didn't get a raise. Or 3 in 10 Americans upset that they were replaced by a robot.
Yeah.
Did you see McDonald's just recently made an announcement? They are working diligently to come up with a new solution for their ice cream machines. Do you know their ice cream machines break down all the time?
All the time.
All the time. So you go into McDonald's and you want, get your sundae, your ice cream sundae, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't. The ice cream machine's not working. Right. This started out kind of a joke as a couple of years ago, and it's just progressively gotten worse. And now McDonald's is actually taking a really hard look at what they can do to make sure that their ice cream machines work consistently.
So by solution, do you mean a solution to the problem or a new recipe for ice cream?
No, it's a machine problem. It's not an ice cream problem. Their ice cream is fine, right?
We're coming up with a new whiz-bang formula.
One that doesn't require an ice cream machine.
Yes, one that doesn't require refrigeration.
It's all chemicals.
It's pure Freon.
Hey, don't put it past them.
I know.
So, new poll out, 3 in 10 workers upset that you can't make this stuff up.
I know. 12 out of 3 employees have trouble with math.
This is correct. 80% are above average.